The Westwood One Podcast Network.
Team Never Quit. Team Never Quit. Team Never Quit Radio.
You ever think about quitting?
It's the combat of life, hammering the snot out of you.
Well, stand by, dig in deep, and get ready to get fired up with us.
Welcome to the Team Never Quit podcast, the #1 podcast that inspires you to fight on. I'm your host, David Rutherford, here with Mr. Never Quit himself, Marcus Luttrell.
Our mission is to help you embrace the suck of life, to teach you the values of working your ass off, and to interview the most hard-charging people on planet Earth.
We know life is hard. It's time for you to suck it up, Buttercup, and let us teach you to persevere in every environment imaginable by sharing real-world lessons learned by those who never quit. That's right. It's time, Marcus, for us to help them defeat the negative insurgency in their lives.
You fire me up. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's roll.
Let's roll. Marcus, greatest baseball movie ever. Go.
Wow. Natural?
Yeah, that's mine right off the bat, dude. Or right off the bat. Why? Because the guy goes in, he's this young buck, he strikes out Babe Ruth or whoever the hell that guy was. He hooks up with the wrong lady, gets shot, disappears. Total team guys
baseball.
Team guys it because he's the allure of all that nonsense with it. Gets shot, goes away, and comes back, right? And remember his bat? Remember?
Oh, yeah. Wonder Boy.
Wonder Boy, right? Pick me out a winner,
You're
Bobby.
a Wonder Boy.
I do take.
Thank you for acknowledging that. Thank you for acknowledging that.
I stole that line from Costner in my head when we're about to get into something. Clear the mechanism from the greatest game, where he was the pitcher.
No, that's Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner's
Yeah.
So when he was on the mound, he'd say, "Clear the mechanism," and the stadium would go away.
Yeah.
I would say that. I still do it to this day.
Do you really?
Yeah.
God, that's another great one.
That's way out of the ballpark there.
Costner, I think he's got that one. He's got, what was the other? Field of Dreams, right?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Oh, man. First off, Wizard, did you play baseball?
I did for a couple of years.
Did you? What position did you play?
High.
Junior high, what position?
First base.
First base? Did you play baseball?
Of course.
What position? Third base? Right on.
Sandlot.
Right? Phenomenal. Right? You're killing me. What's it?
Smalls.
You're killing me, Smalls. That dude, they did a documentary in that recently.
Major League.
Oh, wild thing.
How did we miss that one?
You make my heart sing. You make everything.
It's going to have to be Major League and the Natural, right? Because it's the two opposites.
Two opposites.
That's two opposites
Yeah.
are great.
Well, there's
That's so
other
much
great
fun.
baseball movies, aren't there?
Yeah, there's Mr. Baseball with the greatest actor ever, Tom Selleck.
Magnum P.I., Navy SEAL.
I'm sorry, that's not true. Second greatest. We all know the first greatest actor is Ryan Reynolds.
Dude, he's so attractive.
The only
He's so
time he
supple.
doesn't win
He's like,
an
you
award
taking
is
pictures of your
when he
wife?
just
You wanna
turns it
see-
down so someone else can win an award.
Right?
Yeah.
You're
No,
starting
he
to
said-
throw some Chuck Norris twists on Ryan Reynolds, bro. I like that a lot.
Such a gentleman to do that. He's such a gentleman to do that.
It is gentlemanly. Ryan's a gentleman. I love Ryan. Come on the show, buddy. Come on with us. What's another great baseball movie? You got them? Pull them up over there. Let me see what you got.
Baseball.
Start throwing them out
movies.
at us.
Let's see.
Because we have got a real life baseball legend coming on here.
Hey, what's the one where
Boulder.
Oh my God!
when Tom Hanks
LaRouche.
is the coach. Tom Hanks is the coach.
League of Their Own. Oh, there's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in. Yeah, I one time screamed.
We're about to get. There's one we're missing, right? Obviously,
He's got them
There's
all
a
up.
modern one. I kind of liked it, but what do you think of Moneyball?
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's good, man.
Oh, Brad Pitt and what's his name, man?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that changed baseball. That whole thing.
Field of Dreams, Natural. Those man.
Those
timeless.
Natural's my favorite, but I'm always a sucker for the underdog. You know, I'll tell you what, man. Working with the Red Sox has changed my entire appreciation. There's been 2 pivotal moments in my life because I hated baseball. I sucked at baseball. You know why I sucked? Because of John Brown. John Brown in 6th grade, right? Because I started T-ball 4 years old. In 6th grade, first time we're doing fast pitch, right?
Oh, you blazed?
John Brown was the kid that went whoop, right? 4 inches taller than everybody. You know, he's like 100 pounds. We're all on 60 pounds still, right? He's throwing 60, 65 mile an hour pitches and can't keep it anywhere he wants it. So literally every practice you're getting beamed by John Brown. And so
You have PTSD from John Brown?
I have post-traumatic stress disorder from John Brown, 6th grade, playing baseball in the city leagues, dude. And after that, I could never get in the box. And the other problem for me was, because I had a cannon for an arm, which I still do, they wanted me to pitch. But there was a problem because your throwing motion as a quarterback is different than your release motion in a baseball. And I was petrified that if I pitched, I would ruin my arm for football. So I never pitched. So I'd be out in left field out there, and I'd throw the ball over the backstop. I'd throw it way past third base guy. So I was not very good. So I hated it. I gave it up. I quit, right? I went to lacrosse. But what was it? When Ken Burns came out with that documentary on
I
baseball.
can make some documentaries, man.
Bro, we got to get him on, dude.
Ugh,
You know what I
guy.
mean? I mean, he knows
But also,
history.
rainy days, if it's not Lonesome Dove, it's a holiday rainy day, it's Lonesome Dove. But man, you throw on those Ken Burn documentaries.
Oh my God! The one he just came out with, Vietnam, powerful, bro. But it was the baseball
Civil
one.
War one.
Oh, that was the one who first got me hooked. I watched like consecutive,
I still watch
all
them.
18 hours of that thing, dude. But
Ken burned out. What's wrong with him? Ken Burn.
I'm Ken Burns out, right? The Ken Burns effect on your Apple computer, right? But I watched that, and it was an appreciation for the nuances of baseball, because baseball is really the most incredible game because it's about failure, much like SEAL training is. It's about failure. It's how you condition yourself to manage failure. It's a lot like life, right? How you manage your failure more than your success. And it's this wonderful calculated game between a pitcher and a hitter with some infielders. But it's an incredible, incredible sport. I feel unbelievably privileged, to somehow be attributable.
Yeah, that's cool.
and
You
with
got
it.
that.
Well, dude, I mean, right now, this
The
year,
Red Sox, that organization is great. I've been over there a couple of times to visit, man. They're all
bro, it's one of the best organizations I've ever been around. One of the most gratifying professional experiences of my life. And this year, should they go and do well at the World Series, I will have worked with the Oregon State Beavers. They won the College World Series, and there's a potential that the Red Sox could win this World Series. It would be an epic year for old Ruddy Rut. Old Ruddy Rut. Dude, welcome to the Team Never Quit podcast, Wizard. Welcome.
Thanks, buddy.
Are you glad to be here?
It's such a blessing to be here with you both.
Is he? I can't tell. Give me your download. Where's your gut coming in on that one, big guy?
we need to.
All right, we'll keep going.
Would you rate my genuosity?
Welcome to the Team Never Quit podcast. I'm your host, David Rutt Rutherford, with Mr. Never Quit himself, Mr. Baseball himself, Marcus Luttrell. And
Melanie's a huge Astros fan. Huge baseball fan, but I mean, I didn't know
you guys
that.
went to every single
Man, she is
game of the World Series, didn't you? That was
Lady
here.
Bush, before she passed, she was a diehard Astros fan. Did you know that?
I didn't
I'd go
know
down
that.
to see. They go to watch the games. I had to go down and say hello to them. Do not talk to her while the game is being played.
You cannot talk
She had
to Barbara
a
Bush.
Right. No, you can't.
No, like, get out of here.
She had a paper. She'd keep it. I mean, she was all about it. She loved baseball, and then Melanie, come to find out, she loves baseball. It's fun to watch. I have it on the TV. The kids. I mean, it's a great game.
It is a great game, man. And I'll tell you what,
That was her Christmas present.
was
Santa was assigned baseball, but one of
really
Yep.
by one of those guys, huh? That's a pretty epic present right there.
it was. Thank you.
Man,
Yeah.
awesome. awesome. Well, welcome to the Team Never Quit podcast. We like to think of our podcast as America's pastime podcast. We like to think of us in the same sentence as baseball, apple pie, and the TNQ podcast.
The tire, sliced bread, and then TNQ podcast.
That's it right there.
We are America, right? After you go
Harley
and watch
Davidson motorcycles, Ford Mustangs,
Rocky.
TNQ
and
podcast.
TNQ podcast. I love it, man. That's what we are. So if this is your first show, man, God bless you. Thanks for finding us. If you're coming back for more, you're rounding the bases again, we love you. Thank you so much, because without you, we would be nowhere near where we are in the terms of the success we're having.
We'd be just sitting in a room talking to ourselves.
Man,
laughing at our own jokes.
If without you guys, we couldn't. Yeah, we know that one.
Is that a dumb statement? I thought
Madness would not be
I think
encouraged.
you got to be able to recognize it, right? I mean, we could just be
That is
sitting
true.
there.
Yeah,
and
you should recognize it.
Right?
Every time we come on here, we recognize the fact that without them coming back to listen to it, we could not do this.
we
So
would
thank
not
you
do
so
it.
much.
It would have ended 2 years ago after our first. After
We
the
would not
first
be
one,
enabled to
crashed.
continue this psychosis.
Thank you. I like that you call it psychosis, even though it sounds somewhat negative. but
Calamity.
The calamity of the
calamity
TNQ.
of it all.
All right. Well, welcome to the Team Never Quit podcast. If you want to know more, please visit our website at tnqpodcast.com, where you can also check out, which is my favorite, just hundreds of stories of listener write-in stories where our listeners have been courageous enough to write in their greatest never quit stories, man. And I'm telling you, the collection that we have now is absolutely remarkable. It would make your head spin when you read these stories. Because the one thing, Marcus, and we talk about this, Wizard, is we understand what unites us is the pain we all experience. And we understand that it's hard. It's tough to face incredible adversity, to overcome obstacles, and to figure out what never quit means to you. And that's why we do it. And we thank you for sharing your stories.
Absolutely.
You know what else is getting ready to happen again, Marcus? Absolutely, you know, but they need to know. The Patriot Tour, bud.
It is. We got the band back together.
The band is back together, bro. How do you keep talking Chad and Taya and Goggins to keep doing this with
I keep
you,
trying
bud?
to talk him out of it. we went to Broadway last year, and man,
Epic.
it was. But more people wanted to watch it. It's not, it's kind of one of those deals. It's a comedy, a drama. It's a patriotic play, if you will, of people who went through real situations and kind of have that humor to bring it out on stage. So it's we got the sponsors now.
Oh, man, absolutely. When you have a group like Benchmark Mortgage to come in and helping out with Mills Entertainment, man, it's the type of first-rate production, the first-rate, and this is family entertainment too. That's the one thing that just fires me up about it. Is this is a show you can bring your kids to. This is a show you can bring your family to. This is a show that you reach out to the friend who's struggling, the person who's going through that challenge. You bring them in, you just go to the show, and you're going to see some of the great American heroes and patriots that we have in this country.
I hear that, and people say that a lot. It's a therapy.
Amen.
Like
Amen.
going
It
and
is.
sitting into a therapy group.
That's awesome. That's awesome. If you want to know more, here are the dates. November 14th in Houston, Texas.
Hometown.
November 14th. November 16th at the BJCC Center in Birmingham, Alabama. Alabama! And November 18th at the Paramount Theater in one of my favorite towns, Denver, Colorado. So go ahead and visit the website at teamneverquit.com/Patriot Tour, where you can buy your tickets today for any one of those shows. And you can also purchase MIP tickets, where you can get a chance to meet and hang out with Marcus Luttrell, Taya Kyle, Chad Fleming, and the one and only David Goggins. Awesome. Listen, and if you get a wild hair going, please go to our site and pick up some Team Never Quit swag. We've got T-shirts, hats. We got podcast T-shirts.
The gear's in.
The gear's in. The load out. The load out. The load out.
Go get it.
Go get it. All right? If you want to follow us, you can follow us all. Marcus is at Marcus Luttrell. I am at Team Frog Logic. And the Wizard is at the _Wizard_TNQ on Instagram, baby.
That's it.
Now, listen, to our listeners, it's rare that you get to bring an icon onto a show, right? It's rare that we get to have a person that has had one of the most profound impacts in any particular industry or sport or group or whatever, a profound impact in the history of that particular endeavor. The man that's coming on today is that man. The Wizard is going to go down his resume here in a minute, which is going to take probably about another 25 minutes. But what I want to say is I've had the incredible opportunity of getting to know him. I got to have dinner with this man a few weeks ago, and in the 2 hours we were together, I learned more about leadership, influence, teamwork than I have in a long, long time. It is going to be one of the true honors of my life to be able to interview Mr. Tony La Russa.
Yeah, you've been talking pretty highly about him, and not only you, but we had Rob O'Neill on here not too long ago, and we asked him that Mad Minute question about anyone who had an influence on him or he was really impressed with recently, and that was where Tony came up, and I'm very curious just to see. I mean, those are two big votes for him.
Wow, mine's a big vote, Wizard?
I'm being kind.
That's tight, isn't it, Mark? Why does he do that to me, dude?
Keep you in check.
Keep me in check.
No, it is. You just opened yourself up for it.
I know I did. I teed myself
for
up.
as long as he's been in the sport, and for anybody who can manage those kind of alphas in baseball, those kind of characters, like we're raising the kids
bro.
all the time, right? And keep them in check, and then push them.
Albert
He'll definitely drop some
Pujols.
wisdom on us.
Oh, my God. The guy has seen it and done it all. 33 years. All right, Wizard. I could get caught up in given the accolades. So please give us the lowdown on this.
Yeah, let me run through this real quick. I'll try to keep it brief. But Tony La Russa from Tampa, Florida. He's a Hall of Fame Major League Baseball manager and former player. Currently, he's a president of baseball operations for the Red Sox. As a player, his story starts, at least professionally, with Kansas City in 1963. Now, for the next 10 years, those next 10 seasons, he went between the minor leagues and the majors. He had some injury issues and whatnot. Not the most impressive playing career, and he will admit that. But what he did in the transition between discovering, moving into management, coaching baseball, and being a player was he went to school. I mean, he got a law degree. But when he started managing in '79 with the White Sox, he basically fell in love with that, and that had launched him into a career which he's become a legend. He worked with the White Sox. He worked with the Athletics for a long time, St. Louis Cardinals. He is the third most winning manager in baseball history, the only one in the modern era. He has 2,728 wins.
Unbelievable,
in
man.
5,093 games over his 33 years in Major League Baseball.
5,093 games managed, brother.
5,093 games.
God!
He is, he's taken his team to the World Series 6 times, won 3 of those. Manager of the Year 4 times. Inductee into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And like we'd mentioned before, right now he's working with the Boston Red Sox. That's where Dave was introduced to him, and has started to develop a relationship.
And look what he's doing there, what he's helping doing there,
Right,
baby.
he's assisting in player development, serving as an advisor to the team's coaching staff.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, because you think he's probably seen some stuff.
Bro, when
He's the guy who was like, hey, you do pretty. I won some, lost some.
yeah, right?
Three and three,
he's
man,
humble
that's just-
like that
I know.
too, dude. It's crazy. But here's a guy, and people, when you start talking about the history of it, his last World Series was in 2011, and the one before that was 2006. So it's not like it was back in the 80s when, back in the day,
right.
man. This is modern, dealing with modern people, modern kids, modern everything. He has a wealth and depth of knowledge that's helping, shape, the Sox. Look at the Sox just won. The more wins in Red Sox history this year with him as a part of that team.
You're going to be surprised how relevant what he has to say on baseball pertains to everyday life.
Oh, my God. It's just, you look at, and we're talking about Houston, Alex Cora was Houston's bench coach last year. Comes over after that, brought that winning mentality over to the Sox. They've won more games in Red Sox history. They're going into playoffs now. They've got Tony La Russa. They've got Mookie Betts and JD Martinez, two guys in the running for MVP. I'm telling you, this is when you put great championship caliber leadership together, amazing things happen, dude. Amazing things happen. What do you think, dude? Are you ready?
Are we
Mark,
ready?
Are you
Let's
ready,
go.
buddy?
Yeah, man.
Take me out to the ball game. Marcus, it's not often where you're able to bring somebody on the show that has more wisdom about a particular piece of information than just about everybody else out there. Somebody that can truly bestow a paternal knowledge of fortitude, the intestinal focus to be able to battle through years and years of hard-fought fights, right? I mean, somebody, when you look at them, they'll throw their arm around you and they'll be like, son, let me tell you a story. And you absolutely shut up because you know the next 25 words out of their mouth are going to be so poignant, so pivotal, so monumentous that you're going to take away gems, pearls, if you will, of wisdom that can ultimately shape your life forever.
As one of those guys you stand next to and learn something.
Every time, right?
Yeah,
Now,
because baseball is kind of like life. And if you got somebody who is well versed in baseball, they're probably well versed in life. You know what I mean? It's
well, what a great analogy.
The outlook on it, it's fast paced sometimes, and then it's slow paced. It's every nuance of it kind of can trickle into regular life. So if you have somebody who can pay attention and like he does and has done what he's done, yeah, I can't wait. It's just one of those deals where this is going to be a good time.
This is going to be awesome. So are you boys ready? Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I would like to welcome to the show Hall of Fame manager, Mr. Tony La Russa. Sir, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, you just intimidated me because that introduction, man, I don't know if I can live up to that one, but I'm going to do my best.
Just do what you do every time you talk to a bunch of little whippersnappers.
Yeah, don't be intimidated. The reason we're like this is because of you.
Exactly. All right. Well, sir, before we jump into the nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty of the show, we're going to have to first limber up, warm up a bit, if you will. Take a few cuts in the batting box to get your prefrontal cortex dialed in and ready for us to zing some fastballs at you with the Mad Minute. Are you prepared to answer the most difficult questions in your life, sir?
Yeah, I'm prepared. I'll do my best.
All right. Awesome. All right, Marcus, fire away.
All right, so our favorite time of day.
Well, I think my favorite time of day is end of the day. When you've had a full day where you've put a lot into something that you think is important, and then I like to reflect. I've been taught to reflect back on how it went so you can learn and improve going forward. So I like the end of the day the best.
Me too. That's my favorite, too. All those people who get up real early, to hell with you. I can't stand you.
A sense of accomplishment. I dig it.
All right, Wizard.
I dig it. All right, what is a hobby or skill you've always wanted to have, perhaps for a long time, but you have not yet learned it?
Well, that's a good one because I've never answered this question because nobody's ever asked me it. But I always wanted to learn to play the piano.
Oh,
and,
cool.
And if I've kind of challenged myself, if I have, when I retired or something, if I ever felt like I had some time, I'd love to play the piano. And I've never taken the steps to do it.
Wow, that's a
true.
great
Have you
answer.
been somewhere and there happens to be a piano and someone sits down and just starts racking it out? You're like, man, that's cool, right?
I've been able to.
Jerry Lee Lewis, Great Balls of Fire song. Have that in your repertoire. So if there is a piano somewhere, you're like, watch this.
Who I met was years ago. I met Bruce Hornsby.
Oh, wow.
And he's become a friend. So I've been at his concert probably 20 times over the years, and that inspires me. Except I had never have tried it, but the answer is a piano, man. That's a great question.
That
I hope
is
you get
a great
around to
question. Yeah, I don't know if he knows what actual retirement is. I just don't.
He strikes me as that kind of guy too.
So you're going to be a pianist next round.
Yeah, right. All right, here you go. If you could have managed any other sport, and at what period during history you could manage, what sport and when would it be? And what team, if you want to even go more specific?
I think I would pick. I'd like to manage or be the captain of the Ryder Cup.
Oh, that's cool.
It's my favorite sporting event. It's on right now. As a matter of fact, today's the first day, and you're playing for your country against Europe, and whether you're playing President's Cup against the other part of the country, other part of the world, but you have all these talented guys that make a living playing for themselves, and then you bring them together, and it's just amazing to me, fascinating to see, how tight they get and how motivated they are to perform under the team pressure. So I think if I had my choice, and then I would love to have picked the era where Nicholas and Palmer and Trevino and those guys were playing. Gary Player, that would have been the golden era.
Yeah, it was, for sure. It was funny. I used to play football against Jack Nicklaus's son up in Palm Beach, and he would come to the games and stand on top of the gym, right, and watch over. And I'd always just be in awe, that the greatest golfer in history is at my game, man. It was the coolest thing.
His grandson plays ball, too.
Oh, I know. It's good. Real good. All right, Marcus, fire away.
Okay, sir, what's your greatest memory?
Ooh, wow.
Let's go with fondest, because greatest it's hard to do that with a life like yours. Why don't we have one of your fondest memories?
Well, on the personal side, I think it's probably in 1991, our family, my wife Elaine and our daughters Bianca and Devin, we love companion animals, and we started something called the Animal Rescue Foundation, and 27 years later, it's still going strong. I think on the personal side, that's had a lot of meaning. And I think that's the real highlight. Professional side, you start to answer maybe winning a World Series, but I'll tell you, my best moment has been that and you guys would understand this. We always try to create on our baseball team a brotherhood, a family feeling, like what you do in the military. You're accountable to the guy next to you, and I think over the 30 years we were really successful because we had players that bought into the concept. We had coaches that embraced it as well. So my best memory is on the professional side are just the relationships.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very
sure.
cool.
Absolutely. All right, let's go with. Would you rather have one life that lasted 1,000 years or 10 lives, each being 100 years?
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's.
Watch out for the wizard, Tony. He's going to hit you every time.
Now I understand why they call him the wizard. I probably go for 10 times 100, just because you'd have a variety of experiences.
Yeah,
variety.
That's
good
the way
stories
to
to
go.
pull along with it.
Yeah, I love the variety. All right. Okay. if you could pull out one or two of the greatest pieces of information you've had from your various mentors or people you've worked with or people you've met, what are one or two of those really things that stick out in your mind which have made you the man you are and the success you've had?
Well, I think I would start with personalization. In other words, nowadays there's so many distractions. If you're a leader, you've got to figure a way to get past the distractions that the people that you're being involved with. And the way you do it is you try to personalize your commitment. Commitment is just a promise to do something. So my dad started me on it because he told me, over your life, he says, sometimes people are fooled by you, but don't ever fool yourself. And I think that the fact, this sounds corny, but I managed over 5,000 games. Before every one of those games, I would look in the mirror before I left my office, and I said, when the game is over, I do not want to be embarrassed to look at the guy, which means during the game that I was going to personalize my best efforts. If it wasn't good enough, it wasn't good enough. But I was going to try my best. So I think that personalization is the key to the kingdom for a lot of people, just to make themselves accountable. And then the second one that comes to mind is the value of learning. If you're lucky enough to be involved in an occupation where you have a passion and a love for it, then what goes right along with it is the need to learn as much as you can about what you're doing. And I had a great mentor named George Kissel with the St. Louis Cardinals.
Right.
And he told me, he says, if you want to manage, son, you got to let me know that you love the game. I said, I love it, George. And what that means is that you got to learn. And the more you learn, the more you're going to love it. And the more you love it, the more you're going to want to learn. I believe that learning about what you're involved with feeds that passion, and with that comes success.
Amen. Amen to that. Wow. Heavy. All right, Marcus, fire away, bud. We could end the show on that, but I think we're gonna keep going.
All right, sir. Who's your favorite superhero?
The one guy that that just historically, I have always just, sometimes they ask you a question, who would you like to go to dinner with if you could pick one? And I have, since I was old enough to remember that I had a clue about anything, I always talked about General Eisenhower.
Awesome.
And to me, the fact that he led that, the alliance, the allies, the pressure, what was at stake there, if he had screwed up, who knows what the world would be like. My superhero is General Dwight David Eisenhower.
Oh, that's awesome. That's got to be the best answer we've had so far.
Yeah, the man tasked with leading the greatest generation, right?
Yeah.
Eisenhower got brought up the other day, man. That's good, yeah.
That's epic. All right, Wizard.
All right. As a man with some life under his belt, I'd like you to give us one element of America from the past, which has disappeared, but you'd like to see it revived. And then on the other side of that, one element of modern America you feel is far better than when you were young.
Damn, Wizard. My mind just
we're
melted
dropping heavies
on
on him
that.
right now, but he's coming right back.
I told him it was going to be a real fun interview.
His solid answers are encouraging this punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping we wouldn't get back to the Wizard, man, because that's he tests you.
I know there was going to be a test that I had to study.
Well, I think, I remember, I'm in my 70s, brother, so I remember when life was simpler, and there wasn't as many gadgets, and it was now things are so impersonal in ways. You get on your phone and you text and you do all that. In the old days, there was much more family time, and you did. You used to go to a park and just spend time with your family, play little games. Now, there'd be like a picnic every weekend where the whole family get together. I just think that sometimes simple is better than complicated, because complicated, it confuses you.
Yep.
I'm trying hard to think of what is modern that's better, and I'm not sure. Maybe just to coincide, I'm stretching because I really like the old times better, but to coincide what I said about learning, if you want to learn about something like play the piano, for example, there's a lot of access that you can get to learn about whatever it is that you're interested in. So I think maybe the access to learning is the best part of the modern days.
Awesome.
That could be one of the most powerful elements of the modern world, the accessibility to information. That's a great answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, that is the Mad Minute right there. What Wizard? What was that? That was
like 11 minutes and 72 seconds, better known as 12 minutes and 12 seconds.
Well, he keeps us honest, Tony. He keeps us honest. Well, thank you so much for those really heartfelt answers. But we've got to shift up a little bit now. The reason why we believe we've had so much success with our show is because people from all walks of life, from all cultures, all backgrounds, everybody struggles, and everybody understands what that struggle means and understands hardship and challenging aspects of their life, both personally and professionally. And so we wanted to create a space, a positive space for those people to come to pull away, great pieces of wisdom from really remarkable individuals who followed their dreams and who have done amazing things with their lives, physically, mentally, spiritually. And so, Mr. LaRussa, would you please share with our listeners your greatest Never Quit story or stories?
Wow. I would say probably the one from my baseball career, because you think about it, I never have worked a day in my life. I graduated from high school. That night, there wasn't a draft. Those days, scouts from whatever team could come to the house as soon as you got your diploma and offer you a contract. So I signed that night when I was 17 years old.
Wow.
And I got right into professional baseball, and I ended up playing most of the time poorly, but I played for 16 years. And I think the never quit thing, the only place I ever gave myself, or do give myself any credit as far as my playing career, was that I never quit in the face of a lot of injuries. The first 6 years that I played, 5 of the 6, I had major breaks. Like I got my knee torn up on a double play, dislocated my shoulder when I dove for a ball, tore muscles in my back, hurt my arm. I mean, all kind of. And as I grew up, and I ended up, that was the first 6, and I played 10 more years. I would look back and say, man, why did I hang with it? Part of it was my love of the game, but it was just I never wanted to quit because I was hurt. I could understand somebody telling me, "Hey, you ain't any good, and we don't need you," and that's not quitting. That's just being told it's time for you to leave. But I look back at hanging in there and playing 10 more years, where I had a lot of sore spots, but ended up having a respectful minor league career. But it also set me up for having a toughness and an understanding that if you kept pursuing something that you love, something good could happen, and that became the managing. So I do believe that the never quit as a young player, when I had all kind of reasons, to quit just because I was hurting so much. I think that was valuable. And then, when you transition into the managing, I started managing when I was in my 30s, and I can remember that the thing I realized more than anything else was that you were a leader. If you were a manager, it was, it wasn't like you were leading the corporation or you're leading the country or you're leading, men into battle, but, you're leading the baseball team. So I really studied, I love to read. And during the winter, I would always study books on leaders, trying to learn. And then every once in a while, in my managerial career, I ran into somebody that was one of the leaders that I had been reading about. And I tell you, I'm not making this up. I'm sitting in my office here in Fenway Park, and David's been in here, and I'm looking on the wall, and I'm looking at a picture of General Hal Moore.
Wow.
We were soldiers.
Well, we were soldiers. You guys know who he is.
Yes, sir.
Well, a great friend named Dick Strong brought General Moore to spring training in the early 2000s. And he came to spring training every year until I retired. And we used to go to dinner. And this amazing man, who I think this is so beautiful. It's and you guys probably know this, but this amazing man who fought in Korea and led men in Korea, then went to Vietnam. In his whole career, they ended up in West Point. They have this warrior program, and they ended up naming the male and female cadet warrior of the year gets the General Hal Moore Award, right?
Wow.
Well, we were at that presentation that day. I went to West Point the day that they started that, and they gave out a brochure. Do you know that in his entire leadership career, when he was famous for saying that he was going to be the first one off the helicopter and the last one off, and no man would be left behind? Do you know in his whole career, he never had one missing in action or prisoner of war?
Wow.
That's incredible.
I can't believe it. I believe it, but he just had these qualities of leadership, and one of them was never quit. There's always something else you can do. In fact, I've got his books, where he talks about that, and I'll give you a cute add-on to that. He said, one of his leadership things, he had about 10 things. As a leader, when things aren't working, never ever say that that you've done all you can do. He said, there's always something else you can do. You never quit. You never give in. And once he became a fan of baseball, he told me late in his life, he says, because you guys have made me feel like I'm a part of the Cardinals, I changed that one to where now I say 3 strikes and you're not out.
That's awesome.
Isn't that beautiful or what, man?
That is amazing. Yeah. So the one thing that it just fascinates me is the length of your career, right? And from the moment you started playing to even now, I mean, you're still entrenched in baseball at the highest levels. So throughout those years, you've come to understand the game as good as anybody that's out there. And me being new to the game and having worked with the Sox for a few years now, what really was fascinating to me was the magnitude of failure that's a part of the game. Could you talk about that and the effects it has and how critical it is for the players that you managed in those the great A's teams, the great Cardinals teams? How critical is it to manage that mindset that failure is a part of success?
Well, you had probably the most essential part, especially in baseball, because the great example everybody uses. If you're a real good hitter, you hit 300. That means that you get 3 hits and 10 at bats, or you average 3 hits and 10 at bats. That means you make 7 outs. So, because it's a competition and you're playing against other teams that have talent and they keep score, you don't win all the time, and things are going to go wrong. There's going to be adversity, failure comes in many shapes and sizes, and what you learn is that to be productive at the major league level. Like, at the beginning of the show, I forgot which one of you guys mentioned. It might have been Marcus, said somehow that life. There's an analogy to baseball and in life, the stuff that you go through in baseball with a team and playing a season and trying to win, it's analogous to what people go through in their lives. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. And what you find is that the people that are productive, the guys that are productive, the teams that are productive at major league level, they have a mental and physical toughness. And part of that mental toughness is to recognize that failure is going to be there. You don't ever give in to it. What you end up doing is understanding what a learning tool it is. You can learn by, hey, why did we lose? What did I do wrong? You figure it out, and then you're going to fix it. So I think that looking at at how the game is played and being successful, that mental and physical toughness. See, that's not a talent, man. That isn't how fast you can run or how hard you throw the ball. That comes from a commitment you make to use your brain and connect it to your heart and your guts, and that's something any of us can do.
I love it. One of the great other facets of baseball that I found fascinating, and which I'm sure was not as fascinating to you as a manager, was the different mentalities between, your infield versus your pitching, the different types of games that are going on, the batter versus the pitcher, all of the different nuanced things that are happening in this team-orientated sport that's really about individual competition that's spread out across, 9 innings and 162 regular season games. What did you look for in a player to determine whether or not guys were going to have that mental toughness in those different fights?
Well, it's the power of observation. There's a big issue. There are big issues now in sports about in baseball in particular about formulas, and computer generated information. And I say all that stuff is great and necessary, but that type of analytics is useful, but observational analytics is just as useful. So you're observing guys in those clutch situations, and you're seeing how some guys are they can be intimidated. They can try to avoid the big moment. They're afraid. There's an old saying about a fear. There's good fear and bad fear. Well, the bad fear is the one that you're so afraid that you're going to embarrass yourself or let somebody down that you call in sick. Well, good fear is the one that you see the same potential to do bad, and you just make sure that you prepare so that you do your very best at every minute. So that good fear will propel you. So you'll see which guys are going to back off and which guys are going to charge forward, and that's the stuff that you observe. But I think the thing that's to me is so fascinating about baseball is what you mentioned, David. It's a team sport that's full of individual matchups, pitcher, hitter, defender, offense, and what you try to tell your guys, as a team, we put it all together, but you personally have to be accountable to contribute your piece.
Amen.
It's like watching over your family. As your family grows and the young ones come in, you kind of got to look and evaluate, and the stats tell you everything, but they can't tell you behavior or the situation or the mood that's about to transpire or go down at any given moment. That's why it's so relative to life. And you get the new kids come in, you got to start all over and retrain them and then pull them into the fold. And if it is one of those deals, I mean, they could be the perfect player, but if they have a bad attitude and you throw them in a ring full of guys that they don't get along with, then there's going to be that distension among the ranks. So navigating through all those emotions and people at any given time is just like being a dad, man.
Part of what our formula has been, derived from military, and that is, we tried to, establish that respect and trust among ourselves, and be accountable to each other. I mean, that's exactly what we work on day in and day out, and once you get that going, then you figure out how you're going to play the game.
Absolutely. Now, Marcus, you talk about, man, when you became a chief in Ramadi, how that sense, that paternal influence really kind of took hold of you, and how critical it was to go from being, the lead door kicker to now, man, I got to think on that next level. And Tony, I'm hearing the same thing from you. You for 16 years, you were grinding it out. And then all of a sudden, now you're a player coach, and then you move into, full-time management. Was it hard to let go of the player mindset and really move more into that paternal influence?
For me, it was easy because I was such a lousy player.
I heard him say that before.
I mean, if I could, I'd burn every stat that comes up there as they did do my playing career. But what I found that once I got into managing was I could stay in the game I loved and do it, as a coach, and I like the managing part best because you had more responsibility, but I certainly respected the coaches who were teaching, and that's part of my good fortune. But I think that transition, when you realize what responsibility, that's one thing. If just as an example, if you're the major league manager, think who you're responsible to. There's an owner or ownership that trusted you. There's a front office that hired you. You got fans that are really interested, fanatical about your team, and you're responsible to do something about how that team competes and entertains folks. And then you're responsible to the organization and the team itself. They're looking to you to say, hey, put us in a position to win, you and your staff. So I take that a lot from the way I was raised, but that responsibility is I still take very seriously, and it motivates me every day.
Sure. Tony, we had dinner the other night, and one of the profound things that really hit home to me was when you started talking about growing up in Tampa and the fact, you came from two different cultural backgrounds. Can you talk about that early childhood influence and that grit and determination and how your parents seeded that in you?
Well, I was born in Tampa, as you said, David. In fact, my mother and dad, my mother's family is Spanish, from Spain, and my dad's was from Sicily. So they met, Tampa in the old days, the same as for making cigars. They had a lot of cigar companies, and they met in a cigar factory. So, when I was making reference to which do you like best, and, I like the older days better because the families, we had, financially, we had what we needed. We didn't have anything extra. So we did a lot of things as a large family, from my mother's side, my dad's side. We'd just go to some park and, they'd have a picnic and all the kids would play. Well, the thing that, as I got older, I really understood the concept of family and, having people that cared for you and you wanted to return it. As I got older, I just, I'm struggling kind of how to explain it, but I felt like that those values were exactly what I was taught and I wanted to represent, the rest of my life.
Awesome.
And I give my folks and my family credit for that. And then every place that I went in baseball, it was co-signed by all the mentors.
Wow.
That's very.
You get in that position. It's kind of like the center of the hourglass. In the LPO, that's where I got right. So it's as you're feeling everything from the top as it's coming down. So you go into the boss's office and get ripped 3 ways to Sunday. Then you walk down into the men. Like, what do they say? Like, we need to do better. You just alleviate that stress in both capacities, and it's stepping off the line is tough when you're around the boys and they're happy. We're all happy. If they're upset or something, then you kind of leave and let them be upset and get over it. But if you're in that position, then you have to deal with it. Not only do you like it when they're happy, but you got to deal with it when they're mad.
That's what leadership's about, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Amen.
It's not all patting them on the back all the time, and hey, tell them they're right when they're wrong. So it's. I did have one other thing, which I know it imprinted on my life. My dad, my mother was a homemaker. My dad was a real hard laborer, 6 days a week. What he did for most of his working life, he drove the big wholesale milk trucks that take milk to stores and restaurants and so forth. He did that 6 days a week. Get up at 3 a.m, come back at 5 or 6 at night. Only have Sunday off. And when I was in school, I was an athlete, my dad, and I said, I knew we didn't have any extra money. And I said, you want me to go to work during the summer? You want me to do something after school? He says, no, as long as you're taking care of your schooling and you're serious about athletics, and that time it was baseball, I want to make sure that you get the opportunity that he didn't have as a kid.
Wow.
And I can remember thinking back, I remember my dad working so hard that, to give my sister and I and our family the very best he could. Well, that imprinted me the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'm sure. How could it not? I want to kind of go back a little bit, and we were talking about the analogous nature between sports, being so useful there against life, not just in baseball, and also our listeners come to this show, and people, are looking for advice. And one of the elements of life, as it is in sports, is sometimes going through a rut. How does a person turn, the tide when it seems like you're just trapped in a spiral of failure? And as a manager, as a coach, as a mentor, I'm sure you've had to deal with that in your career. And what kind of guidance do you give? Did you give players? Did you have for your team to pull out of that?
Great question.
Yes, it is. Well, on a general basis, what I was taught when I started managing in the minor leagues, I had the good fortune, part of my playing career, my Logic playing career, I did sit the bench in the big leagues a few times. And one of them was for a Hall of Fame manager named Dick Williams. And he really taught me a lot. And then when I started managing, I could ask him questions. And one of the things that he told me, he says, as a manager, you have a responsibility to develop a strategy for every situation you face. Now, early on, I didn't know what that really meant. I thought, about changing pitchers or, when to hit, run, or steal. But then it was more specific. And so over the years, you run into issues. Like one of them is, you talk about being in a rut, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if there's some type of adversity, well, we developed or learned a strategy for how as an individual or a team, we were going to deal with adversity. If we were going to deal with pressure, if you want to try and win games, they don't just happen because you go out there. They happen because you make it happen. Pressure attaches. So we had strategies for how we handle mistakes, how we were going to become a family. And one of the things about adversity is you can never let it beat you. And you start by addressing, being honest about the adversity. You look for every bit of help that you can. And one of the key little phrases that we were taught, and I taught afterwards, was, we concentrated on what we had, not what we didn't have.
Yeah.
So if you get in a rut and you're thinking about woe's me, and you're getting all depressed and negative and frustrated, well, all that does is just sap energy out of your body. You just lay there feeling sorry for you, or sit there feeling sorry for yourself, right? So we always looked at it, and instead of concentrating on what you didn't have, we concentrated on what we had. Well, you got the opportunity to fix something, or do this, or do that. Look at all the pluses that you got. So, it's kind of I don't mean to go on this too long, but the idea was that you wanted a strategy for everything, and we had a strategy for ruts and adversity, and even if, like the Boston Red Sox winning 100 games, we had a strategy of how you handle success.
Yep.
That you don't start walking around like we call it digging yourself. You just handle it with some humility and just stay hungry.
I love it. Now, one of the things that is fascinating to me is you've been to the World Series 6 times. You've won 3, you've lost 3. Can you talk about the differences in general terms, the differences between, winning teams and losing teams, and what you can noticeably see in those differences?
I think the easiest thing to do to answer that question is if you take the regular season, because that's really the most difficult thing. You play for 6 months, 162 games, and you have winning teams and losing teams. And sometimes there is a distinct talent difference. You know, you got to have talent to win.
Right.
But there are a lot of times that teams with less talent but are smarter and tougher and execute the game. The game of baseball is supposed to be played correctly, you know, execution, and grind it out every day. So you can look at teams that just mentally go out there and, hey, whatever happens, happens. You know, they're not as tough. They can be intimidated. They celebrate too much when they're ahead, and then when they lose a couple games, you can't find them. You know, they're in that rut. But if you talk about the World Series and you talk about the playoffs, see, there's a difference there. And the difference is if you're one of the 8 teams that gets into the last 3 rounds of the playoff, Division Series, Championship Series, and World Series, then those are all winning teams. And it's hard to answer that about World Series because we got in 6 times. The 3 times we lost, you know, there are things that we identified. There are a couple of them that I really felt that I didn't do a good enough job as a leader to get them to, you know, reset their focus on getting 4 more wins. See, so, but a losing team during the season, you know, there's a lot of things that you can point to. And it goes beyond talent. It mostly has to do with your willingness to learn and improve, and we talked about before, your toughness,
right,
about going out there and grinding day out, day out.
So what would you say would be one of the greatest killers towards success? What is one of the worst things that a team can do?
Well, I'll give you one, and, you know, like I say, I read books. I remember one time I read Pat Riley's Showtime.
Awesome book.
Pat Riley.
Yeah, and he talked about the disease of more. And what he meant with that is that you have a team that's successful, and they were a team, and everybody contributed, everybody, you know, stuffed their ego in their pocket. And then after you won, now everybody's looking for more. They're looking for more attention, more money, more this, more that. And what you find is that handling success very often is a problem because it's human nature, especially nowadays. You know, when you got your family, your friends, your agents, tell you, hey, man, it may be a team game, but you got to get yours, you know. So I think that what you learn is that, you know, you got to keep success in a certain perspective, and that perspective is that you know, be respectful of winning and respectful of those that you beat, but don't get carried away where you lose yourself.
That's got to be one of the hardest things to deal with, to keep everything on a level playing field, no pun intended, but because people make different salaries. They play different positions, they got different personalities, and to strip all that away from, that's what the uniform is so great about. When you're going out into the arena, that doesn't matter.
Right.
Because you can't point that out to them every time if they point out to you how much money they make, then you can point out how much money you should take away from them when they miss or mess up, right? Like, I thought you just told me the other day that you were out this money. I figured you wouldn't miss that. You know what I mean? You can't do that. It just cripples them. All that money and all that extravagance, man, that's for the family. I mean, you kind of put it in your head like, I'm just here for the battle, to come in every day, and I'm not training for a game. It's repetitive motion. I'm training to survive against the enemy that comes in to take this away from me. And you never know. I mean, anybody can. The problem is not like with us when you're on deployment. When we get back, I know exactly where we go, right? When you get back after a game, everybody leaves.
Yeah.
Right. They go home, and they, you know, even if you do try and talk about it, you can't talk about it enough.
Well, that's one of the real challenges to leadership in professional sports now. You know, there's such discrepancies between what teammates are making. You know, the quarterback makes a fortune, and maybe the defensive rusher and stuff, and the other guys are grinding the practice every day and making the blocks and doing all. You know, they're not compensated the same way. Same thing in baseball. And you know what I was taught, and it works, is, you know, when you're the leader, you lead. And so I would just set as a philosophy, you know, a verbalized, I don't care. I mean, we, because I would always, about we as a coaching staff, we as an organization, we don't care how much money you make. That's your personal business, and more power to you. But what we look at is, what's our challenge, and that is as a team to play baseball and win games, and you're supposed to contribute. So, we didn't. I was never, and like I say, I got probably the biggest coward you ever met, but I was never afraid to tell the player the truth or to confront them about, what was right and wrong. And the first thing I tell them, I had players as a young manager making much more than I was making. Well, but I had the office, they had the locker, man. So I would say, this is what you need to do, and I don't care how much you're making.
Right. Now, what I love about what you're talking about is really the establishment of that hierarchy and how critical it is in terms of achieving objectives. You referenced Pat Riley. I know you're good friends with Bill Belichick, arguably one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. When you guys are together, are there common traits that don't change over the course of time? Or because everybody's screaming, oh, these new millennials, or it was a different day and age, or all this. Are there some common traits that no matter what, our great leaders know these and apply these?
Good question.
Well, the biggest misconception in sports today at the professional level is that millennials are different. Yeah, they could be if you gave into it, but here's Belichick and there's Popovich, right? They're well into their years and they're still producing champions. Why? Because they're relevant. And and we talked about it before. If you're around, I've never been around Coach Popovich's situation much, but I've been around Bill's. When you see the way that team is bonded and the acceptance that they have to be as great as they can be, and how every person takes accountability, that comes from talking about what are the basics about how we're going to create this family feeling. Well, respect and trust. Then what's the value of practice? How do you develop skills that become automatic once the game starts? You got to work, repeat. It's hard. You just can't half-ass the drills. You got to concentrate on them, and then you take it into the game. So, what you have in common is that those basics have been around 100 years, and you got to build the way you play the game on those basics. And here's another one. Every year, this is one of the most important. Like John Madden, he's from back where I live in the Bay Area. I had lunch with him at least once or twice. I had the great good fortune of having lunch with him, and on several days, Bill Walsh.
Wow.
That's how you learn. And and Coach Madden said the biggest thing you got to do every stinking year is when you start camp, you got to start at zero. Everything starts at zero. How you put the team concept together, how you remind them how they're going to bunt, base run, hit, catch, everything. Start at zero, build it step by step.
Oh, yeah, everybody makes some mistakes of saying the millennials, whatever you want to say. That's the next version off the line. That's the next thing coming. You can't get rid of them. This is it. This is what's coming up, man. I mean, you know what I mean?
And that's
what are you talking about?
And that's why we were
skip them or something. And it's depending on where they come from, because technology, whatever. You can get into all the who's and what's and why they are the way they are. It doesn't matter, man. They're with you now. And once humans can be trained to do anything, you can take that bad part away. I mean, it's discipline. That's all it is, man. And these guys, let me tell you something about the Williams. I work with them every year, and they're smarter, faster, stronger, just like they should be. I mean, Remember what they said about our generation? I do. I remember what they said about every generation.
They didn't say you were faster,
it wasn't good
though.
No, yeah. I made that point. To clear up. I'm definitely not fast.
Well, I mean, yesterday.
But it's like the thing, man. You get them in, and it's your kids. It's a family, right? And if you do something in life where your whole identity revolves around the family, it doesn't matter what's coming up. It's coming up. Everybody open up and get ready and see what's coming in. Then you surround them, embrace them, and mold them. That's what happens.
Well, I watched you do it yesterday with those two boys out here who you were giving kind of the old beat down, but, dropping knowledge on them about what the responsibility is in the future should they, on the unlikely event, make it through training. become Navy SEALs and what that means. I mean, it's and to go back to you, Tony, you know, one of the things that really stood out to me was that concept of, you know, the tangible intangibles. Could you describe those and what you mean by that and how you see those in people and really bring them out of them?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, David, because I think it's one of the strongest arguments that you can make about, in fact, exactly what Marcus was talking, just because of millennials, you just don't discount and say, well, we give up, can't reach them. You know, they're not going to be, they can be everything that your generation was, as long as if you take the clutter away, you know, and all the distractions. Well, what we try to do is, you know, if you want to build a team that's got real togetherness and toughness, those are decisions that you make, you know, from your mind. Okay, I want to be part of this. You know, like we had a saying as a manager, you know, I never greased a squeaky wheel. I tried to correct them, but I took care of the guys that bought into the team concept. And if you didn't buy into that, we didn't want you. You know, so you know, when you go into it, the thing that it comes back over and over again is that, yeah, how fast does he run? You can see that. But when you see a team that's pulling together, that, you know, and hey, we know if I didn't come through, I knew somebody else would come through. And you see the guys on the team, they cared for each other. They respected, they trusted each other. Well, you can see a team go through, and you can see it, but that's really not tangible. It's intangible, but it's so it's so there that you feel. That's what I call it, tangible and intangible. You know, toughness is a tangible and intangible. You know, hard work and hard effort. You know,
true.
And I think at bottom line, you know, that's where success starts, and that's where it continues. You know, if mentally that frame of mind is not something that you have developed, and every year you treasure, respect, and keep it going, you won't be able to have longevity, and you may never even experience success in the first place.
Oh yeah, you got a kid who comes in, man, who's just knocking the cover off the ball for the first 2 seasons, then all of a sudden he's in a hit slump. He didn't forget how to hit. There's something going on in his head. Something's happening.
That's
right.
Exactly.
You know, these guys are pros, man. They've hit that ball so many times. And you got a guy who all of a sudden ain't doing it. There's something going on outside. I mean, period. That's the only thing that's going on, right? You just can't.
I mean, we saw it in teams too. It was the guy.
Stopped having fun.
Yeah, the guy that was struggling.
Something got in the way of you having fun.
Family problems or something
that's
like
usually
that.
it, right?
Yeah.
It's something anything that can cause you to not. Especially these great players, man, who can do all that when they come in and when they hit that slump. That's usually the pride. Well, one of probably 7 deadlies, right? It's pride, or when something's just overshadowed. Like, am I that good? You know, you start second guessing. You're like, man, just get better hit the damn ball. Something's going on in your head.
Hey, man.
You know, there's another part to that too. Suppose the guy is struggling, and let's say you got 2 guys that are struggling. One guy is struggling because he's trying too hard. You know, he's just suffocating his ability.
Yeah.
Another guy is struggling because he's just mailing it in, man. He just don't give a crap. He's not really putting the whole effort into it, right? Well, as a leader, you better read which one that it is, because if it's the guy that's trying too hard and you get on his case because you're not getting it done, man, you got to get more into it. Well, he's liable to explode.
Right.
He's a guy you got to tell, hey, man, just breathe and relax. Well, if you got a guy that's half-stepping, and you put your arm around him and say, hey, man, you're going to be okay. Well, you know, that's the guy that you got to put your foot up his ass, because you got to read the situation, and that's where leadership comes in.
Amen.
Like diagnosing the wrong
ailments.
Giving the wrong medicine.
Wrong medicine. And
that's right.
And that's what great leadership is, right? Great leadership is
right
about giving.
There's not what's going on with him. There's something else.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Well, Tony, to wrap it up here, one of the things we always ask of our guests is to try and give, you know, a couple pieces, or 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of information that you believe that can be the igniter the spark, if you will, for that listener that's sitting at home, that's really battling something, that's struggling to get back in the game, to get out to the plate, and to really just breathe, like you were saying. What are a few things that you really hold near and dear to your heart after the really miraculous, incredible career you've had and the profound impact you've had on, I don't even know how many Hall of Famers, but what are some things that you could suggest to our listeners to help them get up there and start hitting away?
Well, one of the first would be if you're fortunate enough to get into something that you have a passion for. And, sometimes you may really love to do this and your line of work is something else. But if you had a choice at the beginning, try to pick something that you really, really have a passion for, because it releases a lot of energy and the willingness to learn and work. The other thing that I think we should all realize is the power that's within us if we seriously are interested in making whatever it is happen.
Amen.
Like, let's just say you make a commitment. Just say you want to work out, and you work out for a couple of weeks, and then you lose interest. Well, if that thing was important enough to you, and that's the point I'm making, if you see something and you make it and you control your mind, and it becomes something that's really important to you, what it does, and we talk about this with our teams all the time, it unleashes amazing strengths, whether they're mental strengths, adrenaline that gives you physical strength, conviction, commitment, whatever it is. So when I talk to kids, for example, I talk, if you can pick a passion, that's great, but don't be afraid. Be afraid to not take a shot and then regret it the rest of your life. Make sure, if you go out there and fasten onto something that you really believe in, what's going to happen is you're going to find all these abilities and strengths that are within you, that you unleash them, and you'll accomplish stuff that you almost would never dream of.
Amen. Amen. Well, sir, thank you so much. I got to tell you, on a personal note, just in the short amount of time that I've known you, and the one time that we got to go to dinner recently, the impact you're already having on me is profound. And I just know in my heart that, what you do every day and the impact you have and the impact you'll have on this show and our listeners is also going to be profound. So I can't thank you enough, sir, for your time today, and just thank you.
Well, you ought to know that it's my honor to have been involved with the three of you. I'll tell you very quickly, and everybody that knows me for years knows this. Once I realized what people in the military have provide to all of us who are living in this country, and the sacrifices they make, I never ever talk about hero. If the guy gets a game-winning home run, he's not a hero. If he does some of the courage, those things are reserved for what you guys do, and it was my pleasure to be a part of this.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
A great honor.
Good luck in the playoffs. I hope to see you out there, and we'll talk soon. God bless you.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye. Bro, dude, you just nailed it, right? You just nailed it. That's like having your grandfather on the show.
Yeah.
Seriously.
When he starts to answer the question before we finish, so if you think, well, yeah, I know where you're going with that. I know you do. I know, you got to figure it out. And a wealth of knowledge, right? I mean, it just the ins and outs. Plus, with baseball, man. You're going to lose.
Well,
it's not losing either, man, because it's a series. Most people don't think, I lost the game. Well, no, it's multiple. You got to keep going, and that's the battle. And that's why it's so unique to life, really, man, because it's got those flashy moments. Sometimes you hit it out of the park. Sometimes you think you hit it out of the park and you don't, and you hit the wall.
Well, you fail more than you do well in baseball,
Right.
and for me, that's the crazy thing. You know,
Keep learning.
After
And you start over.
I played a little bit as a kid that I talked about before, in an intro, but now working with the Red Sox for 3 years, and understanding the grind. Right? The daily grind and managing that failure day in and day out. Nobody really, other than Connie Mack, right? The old manager from back in the day, nobody has managed that failure better than Tony La Russa. And Wizard, you were saying it, when he opens his mouth, there's this free-flowing sense of truth based on the level of what he's experienced.
When he's speaking on these topics, has so much of a wealth of experience in his life that it flows out of him in these just packaged ideas, which we just saw. That, I mean, really, you go back and listen to that several times and just deconstruct it before you really grasp everything he laid down there. I mean, there are some guests that he's one of them that. We could bring him back on and talk to him for another 3 hours. And, we would just keep unearthing more.
Yeah, cool to have imagine the comment. As he watches the game, watches it unfold. I guess from the first time they put their foot on the ground and they go out, or from the first hit, he's going to know how that game is going to be played, right? And just kind of weather it from there in his head, because he's watching his family. He's like, "All right, my kids are out there. Let's see who showed up." Right?
Well, totally. Well, what I've learned about him, he keeps meticulous notes of every game he watches, every game he's ever been a part of. He's this remarkable note taker. So he has reams and reams and reams of notebooks or journals filled with what he's learned over the course of, since he's been in baseball in
Basically
1973.
a book on how to deal with everybody's reality. I mean, it's kind of one of them deals where he has to learn how to deal with each individual person in the family.
Well, he's got a remarkable book out there called One Last Strike, and I highly recommend everybody read this thing. There's also another book with Joe Buck, the famous baseball sports commentator.
Joe
you
Buck's
know him, right?
Yeah, man.
You know him real well. We got to get him on the show.
We do, man.
Can you call him up? We got to get him on. Yeah, we got to get Joe Buck. Well, and then
and Troy.
Who?
Troy Aikman.
Oh, bro, another sick leader.
Him and Troy, those two guys are awesome.
Oh, so go check out their books as well, and you'll find just a wealth of information from Tony La Russa.
Let me tell you my Joe Buck story. I was at dinner with him and Melanie and Troy was there. I forget what we were doing, but anyways, I'm a watch geek, and I was like, "Hey, let me, what do you got on your wrist there?" and Melanie's like, "Oh," I was like, "Took it off," and I was checking it out. It was nice, and man, I was like, "That's a tough watch." And then we were walking back down. We were walking a couple blocks to the hotel or whatever. I was like, "Hey, you want to see that thing again?" Because it was nice. And I gave it back to him. Then I went back on the road. Melanie came home, and she's just about 3 weeks later. She's like, "You ain't gonna believe what just showed up in the mail." And he sent me a watch.
He sent you that watch?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Every time I put it on, I take a picture and send it to him. So thanks for the watch.
That's awesome,
you believe
man.
that?
Yeah, I can.
Really?
Yeah.
It blows my mind. I thank him every time I look at it.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense to me, for sure.
Yeah, something.
Well, I mean, the time he spent with you was probably pretty powerful, and that's
I just so good. I get around, like, tell me everything.
Give me it all.
Hey, one thing before you go into the reader story and all that stuff, I just want to bring back when he was talking about focusing on what you have and not what you lack when you're trying to pull yourself out of a rut or a hole. You're just
By the way, I take personal offense to the rut comment.
Every time you said it, I was
everybody says rut. I'm like, God, I'm not a rut, am I?
You're in a rut. We have him with us all the time.
Yeah.
We bring a rut with us. We depend on our rut.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, Wizard. Go ahead, because I know the point.
But I really liked the two things that came out of that question. One was to focus on what you have and not what you lack.
Yeah.
Right. It's so easy to say, we need more of this and we need more of that, and it's the fault of this person or that situation, and focusing on what you have and then constructing a solution to get out of that. And then also before that, him talking about how it's part of a leader to have constructed strategy prior to, this is your responsibility, so you know how to deal with it.
Yes.
It's not that a leader necessarily just develops a strategy and what to do next on the spot when the problem presents itself. These things, and this is the responsibility of a leader, is to have gone through as much as you can possibly conceive of encountering when you're out there in the field and when you're out there in whatever forum.
In life.
And then have an answer and a strategy to confront that so that when it hits, you can immediately employ it.
Oh, yeah. Hinge pin. That's what you want, the male or female, the one who everything kind of comes together and we lock it right down because with this person. That's who that is.
Well,
they've been through so much they can talk to both sides of it, right?
Totally.
And they've seen both sides of it, good and bad, their perspective over years and time, and all the scars and wrinkles and all that, the stories that come with it. Man, that's the one you want. in that center of the hourglass, that's the one you want. They can take anything, been through anything, and kind of lays it all out like, this is what we got. Let's go this direction.
Yeah. That's a powerful
There's a reason
influence.
why leaders tend to be older, experienced people. I mean,
You think?
That's a great point.
charisma, and only gets you so far.
And bravado.
And
Yeah.
bravado only gets you so far.
Well, listen.
That goes away in the hard times. And if you're just kind of standing there with that
Right.
big smile on your face that got you in there, then people are like, all right, well,
What next?
Because you had that beautiful smile. We thought, you had all this. You're going to run out of talent real fast.
Run out of talent.
quick.
What's Paul say?
He's like, hey, man, you've been doing this and just run out of talent? That happens to me all the time.
I love that statement.
Yeah, except he's a super bike racer, so
He's
the
like, I was on the
consequences
corner,
are a
I was
little
holding it
different.
hard, and I was doing good, man. Just ran out of talent. And I could just see him running out of talent and tumbling across the ground. It was epic.
Totally. Oh my God. If this is your first show and you're coming over from somewhere else, you're a baseball fan or you're somewhere else, we're just so privileged and honored to have you now. Thank you so much. You're joining a team of really remarkable people. Our followers and fans are incredible never quitters themselves. And we're just so proud to have you all be a part of this, because without you, we wouldn't exist, and we want to thank you for that.
Yeah, you got shifted over. No more followers and fans. Y'all are teammates now.
Yeah, teammates.
Right,
That's the
got 'em
way
in
we
there.
like to call them, is teammates. And one of the great aspects of our teammates is you can go visit our website at tnqpodcast.com, and if you're up for it and your batting average is looking strong and you feel like contributing, please write in your greatest never quit story or stories, because I'm sure that you have something, or someone your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, your brothers, sisters, cousins, I don't care who it is, just a friend. They've got a story that can help other people when they're struggling to get home.
And so right now, when he just said that, you're like, oh, I got a story, but it's not as good as the one I just heard. No, I'm talking exactly to you.
Yes.
That person right there who just said that in your head.
Yep. You're the one.
Send it over here.
Because no story speaks to every person, but every single story speaks to a person who is in that place at that time and that moment.
Yeah, just the
it's what
player's
they need
different.
to hear.
Just
Amen.
the player's different, right?
Yep.
The situation and the outcome and all that, but the player is different. We want to hear how you navigated through that.
Absolutely. Because great stories ignite legends. All right, we've got one right here. This is from Mike. I'm not a SEAL, but I think my story might fit with what you guys are doing. In 1996, I was diagnosed with chondrosarcoma, a rare bone cancer. In 2005, my bone cancer I'd been fighting came back. During my previous encounter with my cancer, I'd had my left knee joint replaced. My doctor pronounced me cancer-free, and we thought our time with cancer was done. But cancer had other ideas, and it came back 8.5 years later. The result of bone cancer's visit this time was having my left leg amputated. As before, the doctor said that there were good margins and the cancer appeared to be gone. Once more, we thought we were done with the bone cancer. But once more, it had other ideas. The tumors kept coming back. Each operation to remove one malignant tumor agitated the dormant tumors nearby. Cut one tumor out and 3 more would pop up. Soon, the tumors were growing faster than my doctor could remove them. And, as often happens with chondrosarcoma, it began migrating through my system and soon metastasized to my lungs. Then those tumors began to grow as well. My doctor threw in the towel, telling me I had less than 5 years to live. He couldn't continue the surgery because it wasn't helping. He recommended palliative care and hospice. 5 years or so left, and I was only 52 years old. The odds against us seem staggering. Chondrosarcoma is a rare form of bone cancer, accounting for only 250 of the 1.6 million newly diagnosed cases of cancer each year. If it metastasizes to the lungs, as mine had, the survival rate after 5 years drops to below 50% rather rapidly. Put simply, things didn't look good. There were no 10K fun runs, pink ribbons, or cool buttons for chondrosarcoma. It's just you, the disease, and hoping you can find an effective treatment. Fear, helplessness, and hopelessness began crowding in. I tried to stay upbeat, but my mind flooded with images of life I'd be missing. Anniversaries and trips with Sarah, celebrating our son Nick graduating from college, walking our daughter Stephanie down the aisle, holding our first grandchild. We found a clinical trial in Houston, but 2 months into the trial, we hit a roadblock. We found out I had been on a placebo drug the whole time, not the trial drug itself. The doctor switched me to the drug right away, but this change meant the trial timetable had reset back to day one. Because of the reset, we would be enduring close to 3 more months of traveling to Houston every 2 weeks. The schedule change meant we also had another problem. We could only afford 2 or 3 more trips to Houston before we were out of money. We had went through savings, retirement accounts, and Sarah's inheritance paying for my travel. Now, there wasn't enough to keep going with my treatments. Suddenly, we were facing one of the worst decisions imaginable. Continue the treatments in Houston, somehow, finances be damned, but put my family in the poorhouse. Or we could stop the treatment, let nature and cancer take their course, and hope my family could somehow continue without me. I couldn't bring myself to that choice. But the current path was a fast track to bankruptcy. I couldn't ask my family to starve in order to save me. But we couldn't afford to have me keep going to Houston or move there. I have never felt so trapped or helpless. Pay up or die. It was that simple. Through a friend of a friend, we found Lazarex Cancer Foundation and their mission of helping cancer patients to get to clinical trials. We desperately needed help, and with my travel costs, we applied to Lazarex for assistance. All of our hopes, fears, dreams, and quite literally my life riding on what they would say. A few days later, the phone rang. It was Lazarex. They would start covering my airline tickets and hotel stays right away. I could stay on the trial. I could keep going to my treatment. I was going to live because of their help. I was going to live. As I entered my 4th year in the clinical trial of the Agios pharmaceutical drug AG120, I'm finding there are reasons to celebrate as my treatment has progressed. The drug has effectively stopped the growth and movement of my chondrosarcoma tumors. At the time when I started on the trial, my tumors were growing at an approximate rate of 2 to 3 centimeters per month. In the 4 years since, my tumor growth rate has been less than one-tenth of 1%. Because of Lazarex, I've been able to keep working and supporting my family, Despite losing my left leg to bone cancer and being in a wheelchair, I've been able to keep living, and I've been able to keep the promise I had made Sarah and our children, Nick and Stephanie, with our battle when our battle started. Cancer doesn't get the win. Not now, not ever. So that's my story. I'd be happy to talk with you further. In any case, continue and good luck with your podcast and your work. Supporting veterans such as yourself isn't a Republican or Democrat thing. It's an American thing. You guys have our profound gratitude and eternal thanks. All the best, Mike. Mike, brother, thank you. I had a friend, Andrew Cacco, die of cancer, bone cancer, a few years ago after a 2.5-year battle with it. And man, I learned so much from him. My cousin's son also has battled cancer, has been cancer-free for many years, so I know it well, and I have all the profound respect for all those out there who have fought in the hard fight and never quitting in their battle against cancer. And I thank you, sir, for contributing your story. I want to thank God. I want to thank Christ. I want to thank my girls and Jonna, my family and friends, all those I know that I've been around in my life, playing sports since I was 4, through the teams, all those incredible leaders and mentors that have really taken the time with me to turn me into the man I am. I want to thank Tony, because you truly are one of the greats in history, sir. One of the great managers in baseball, one of the great head coaches of all time in any sport. And I'm really excited at the fact that there's a potential that at some point you and I could become better friends.
Getting dealt that death card, it's tough, man. It puts everything into perspective.
Amen.
Kind of gives you a new flavor on life, and how you look at it, and
Can't imagine
what's important to you. And good job, man. You know, when you get hit, and even if they start cutting things off of you, if you got your heart and your mind, your soul, you kind of just keep pushing forward and thinking about your family. That's the trick, right? That's the medicine. And lo and behold, something shows up. That's the trick, man. Just hold on, right? Just hold on as long as you can. Hopefully some of us show up and we'll help. But if it doesn't and you cross over, then, man, give it the good fight. So that's good on you for that, brother. And thanks for writing in. And Mr. LaRussa, you have dropped some knowledge on us. Again, it's kind of like Sir Robert Van Pelton.
Sir Robert!
This is one of those ones when we leave here, we go out, we're like, man, I know he said that. That's what he said. Yeah, that's what he says. I never heard it like that.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful part about it, man. You get somebody with a lot of experience and perspective, and all they have to do is just say it a certain way. And it kind of chimes into your head. And you're like, man, I never really saw it like that, but that makes complete sense now. And
yeah.
When that happens, that level of calm that comes over when something's explained to you in that direction is amazing. He did that a lot. So thank you for the wisdom, actually, sir. It was a joy to have you on. If everybody keeps bringing us back, man, I can't thank you enough. You guys really are. It's a blessing to be on a team with you guys. I don't have the vocabulary. Thanks to the wife for letting us do this, and the man upstairs for letting us see another day. God bless you guys. I'm out.
Out.
Never quit radio.